Hello, my name is Allison Unitas, and today I'll be discussing dietary fiber and its role in preventing colon cancer. So, what is fiber? Fiber is a complex polysaccharide sourced from plant foods. In the plant cell walls, fiber will provide structural support. When we eat fibers, our body does not produce an enzyme to break bonds between molecules called beta glycosidic bonds. Because of this bond, fibers stay largely intact throughout the digestive tract until they are excreted out in feces. Fiber can be divided into two categories based on the characteristics it exhibits within the GI tract. Soluble fibers will dissolve in water to form a gel-like substance in the intestines. The addition of soluble fibers helps slow digestion and transit time, which helps create a feeling of fullness and satiety. This type of fiber has also been shown to bind with cholesterol to then be excreted in feces. In turn, this will reduce overall cholesterol in the body, helping health and well-being. The other kind of fiber is called insoluble fiber, which refers to its property of not absorbing water. It adds bulk to feces and draws water in, allowing for a softening effect and easier passing. Most fruits and vegetables contain both types of fiber. So, how is fiber beneficial to health? Fiber has been proven beneficial in various aspects. Like previously stated, soluble and insoluble fibers improve the function of bowels, allowing for stool to pass easier. Soluble fiber has cholesterol binding abilities to lower the overall cholesterol, which can be beneficial for heart health. The bulking effect and long digesting time of fibers increases the feeling of fullness, which can be beneficial to prevent obesity. The slow digesting property of fiber slows the rate at which glucose can be absorbed. This helps to maintain blood glucose levels. The final property of fiber is its protective qualities it takes on within the GI tract. Many studies have shown its various roles it plays in the colon to reduce risk factors for many fatal diseases. This protective aspect of fiber helps me segue into my research question. Does dietary fiber lower the risk of developing colon cancer? I will be discussing 3 research articles and their findings into how fiber in the diet lowers and prevents the development of colon cancer. First, we will discuss what colon cancer is and how it can develop in the large intestine. Colon cancers, like many others, are due to uncontrolled cell growth. The formation of clumps of cells in the colon are called polyps. They start in the inner lining of the colon, also known as the mucosa. Polyps generally don't cause any symptoms and can be caught in a routine colonoscopy. However, as a polyp grows over 1 centimeter, it has a higher risk of becoming cancerous and gains the name adenoma. This uncontrolled cell growth makes its way through the many layers of the colon, and eventually cancer cells end up in the bloodstream, traveling to distant parts of the body. Risk factors for developing colon cancer vary. Some can be controlled, while others, like family history, age, and GI conditions, cannot be controlled. Another interesting thing to note is its increased diagnosis of colon cancer in the US. The current daily recommendation for fiber intake rises above 20 grams. However, most of the US population has intake levels of only around 10 to 15 grams. The likely cause of this is because of the so-called Western diet. This diet of high fat, high sodium, high carbohydrates, and low fiber is what's seen in many parts of this country. While it's been found the prevalence of colon cancer has decreased in older adults, diagnosis has been on the rise in those under 50. Ideas have circulated that this is due to the screening age for colonoscopies. However, with the popularity of decreased physical activity, higher rates of obesity, and increased consumption of the Western diet, colon cancer is almost impossible to avoid. I will now discuss the 3 scientific studies that can be used to show how dietary fiber lowers the risk of developing colon cancer. The first study, called Effects of Cereal and Vegetable Fiber Feeding on Potential Risk Factors for Colon Cancer, consisted of 34 individuals fed 5 different diets over the course of 23 days. Each diet varied in the amount of fiber and its source. The 2 main sources of fiber studied were from wheat bran, like in cereals, and as vegetable fiber. Results from the study had 2 main impacts: the effects on bile acids and the effects on stool samples. Compared with the 0-gram fiber diet, any introduction of fiber was found to lower fecal pH and reduce the amount of bile acids. This is due to the binding properties of soluble fibers. Evidence has shown that higher concentrations of bile acids can increase risk of developing colon cancer. When fiber is able to excrete most of the bile from the intestines, it reduces the ability of recycling the bile to make secondary bile acids. Because of the lowered pH, enzymatic activity is halted to prevent these harmful secondary bile acids from being produced, which have shown to cause DNA damage in cells within the GI tract, which can promote the formation of tumors. High pH in the colon promotes growth of carcinogens from bile acids, which can be inhibited with the inclusion of fiber in the diet. This study also proved effective on the stool samples of the participants. Those who consumed fiber had heavier stool weight, along with a greater percentage of wet stool weight. This is likely due to the properties of insoluble fiber and its ability to draw in water, and soluble fiber's role of binding with water. The increased amount of water in the GI allows for stool to pass through quicker without any fiber. Transit time is important because when food is left to sit in the intestines for longer amounts of time, more harmful products can be released while the components are being degraded, such as ammonia or sulfur compounds. They cause a disruption to the mucosa, along with an inflammatory response that can be correlated with colon cancer development. The takeaways from this study show that just even a slight increase in fiber can play a major part in reducing risk for colon cancer. The second study I researched, called Dietary Fiber Intake and Risk of Colorectal Cancer and Incident in Recurrent Adenoma in Prostate, Lung, Colorectal, and Ovarian Cancer Screening Trial, found a group of around 60,000 people after filling out a survey about their fiber intakes. Participants received a colonoscopy prior to altering their diets to predetermine any risk factors for colon cancer. Diets were then altered to increase amounts of fiber consumed daily. Over the course of the study, occurrence of colon cancer was highest in men who smoked, drank, or ate processed meats, and people who had a higher caloric intake in general or a higher body mass index. This study concluded an inverse relationship between the fiber intake and cancer development, meaning increased fiber intake decreased diagnosis of colon cancer and vice versa. An interesting part of the study showed that participants who ate more processed meat in their diets could lower their chances of developing colon cancer through eating fiber. Fiber can play a crucial role in lowering the exposure to carcinogens that are released when the meat is broken down in the intestines. Similarly, the fibers found in cereals consumed by participants are also able to bind with carcinogens to limit the amount inside, thereby reducing the chances of developing cancer. The last study I will be discussing is via an animal study called Diet, Genes, and Microbes: Complexities of Colon Cancer Prevention. This trial created two different diets for rats containing different variations of resistant starches. HA7 is a high amylose starch, and HA7A is stearic acid combined with high amylose starch. Along with the one control starch they fed the rats. After 5 weeks of consuming a control diet, one group of rats was administered with azoxamethane, a known colon carcinogen, while the other group was treated with saline. The rats were then fed these diets for an additional 8.5 weeks before being killed to analyze their feces and colons. The study noted both the changes in stool between rats, but also discusses the differences in the microbiomes of those fed fiber. Similar to the first study, fecal weight increased with an increased consumption of fiber and stool pH decreased. In both starch-resistant diets, prevalence of bacteroidetes increased and amounts of proteobacteria decreased. Proteobacteria are strains of microbiota that can increase inflammation in the gut. This can increase cell differentiation and replacement, which can increase the chance of mutation in the gut. The increased risk of mutation can provide development of cancerous tumors. However, bacteroidetes are beneficial in the gut to make short-chain fatty acids that can then be converted to butyrate. Butyrate plays a large part in regulating cell differentiation and apoptosis to help prevent the start of cancerous growths. While many of these studies I discuss improve stool samples and bowel function, this study is interesting in the sense of it changing the makeup of our microbiome to help promote growth of healthy bacteria. The risk of developing colon cancer can be greatly reduced through simple changes in diet that can introduce more fiber to each meal. The recommended daily amount for fiber ranges from 25 to 30 grams, but these amounts can be increased for those of older age. Good sources of fiber can be located using a food label, with the first ingredient on these items starting with the word whole. Good sources of fiber contain at least 2 grams of fiber per 100 calories. Fiber can be found in a variety of foods, including grains and bread or rolled oats. Fruits and vegetables have abundant amounts of insoluble and soluble fibers, many containing a mixture of both. Beans, nuts, seeds, and legumes are also simple things to add to dishes in order to increase the amount of fiber consumed in small portions. While the option of supplementing fiber is available, it's recommended to only do so as a last resort, as they don't contain other nutrients found in whole food sources. The information on this slide provides examples of meals that can be eaten throughout the day in order to boost fiber consumption. Many of these ideas add simple tweaks to typical dishes, like a switch from standard white flour pasta to chickpea pasta, which adds fiber and protein, or adding sprouts to a typical BLT and loading it onto whole grain bread. If people can start adding these small changes to their daily lives, risk factors for colon cancer can be reduced dramatically. In conclusion, it's important that individuals can learn to incorporate more fiber into their diets, As shown by studies, fiber plays roles in reducing fecal pH, increasing transit time and stool weight, has influences on microbiota beneficial to health, decreases bile acids, and protects against carcinogens. Research continues to be done on this nutrient, and it's essentially endless list of benefits. So when people say, eat your veggies, eat your veggies. Thank you.